Well, let's get going then.
Okay.
I would like to, especially because there wasn't a recording last time, I would like to do a bit of a reheat first of what was covered in the first session, and I'll double check, but I do believe this is actually recording this time. So
yeah. The little red dot has come up in the corner. So
very good, very good. So let's talk about. I'm going to test you and see how much you remember. It's like school, right? So the bow position.
cheat.
Oh, look at you! Yeah, you've got the cheat sheet. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you more than what's in there.
Okay.
For sure.
All right.
But let's talk about the bow position. We know, right? The explanation of the bow position is feet about shoulder width apart. Roll the shoulders forward, up, back, down, and then hold tension and then release, right?
Yeah.
What's actually happening? Let's go through the process based on some of the things that we covered before. What happens energetically when you roll the shoulders forward? See.
I don't know.
Huh?
I don't know. Hang on. Can you hear us? All right. Yeah, great. Okay, yeah. I'm not sure as to what the purpose of the rolling forward is. Okay. I was hoping that you were going to say is what is the point of tensing and then releasing.
I'll get there. I'll get there.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, not actually sure what it actually causes, what it enables the faculties to do by that rolling forward.
So we talked about last time the idea of holding tension and those sorts of things in various parts and what that causes from the energy inside the body, right? What happens in that. And so when you roll your shoulders forward, what you're doing is you're creating tension in the chest area, which then begins to release energy, right? Because it's like a sponge. You squeeze it and it squeezes that energy out. And it's going to go around to your back. And so this rolling forward is the first stage in being able to power the spine, which is very, because you're pulling energy out from the front and charging the spine, okay? And it's very important because the spine is one of, it is the main accumulator for the body, right? We talked about accumulators. You recall? The accumulators are the long bones.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So as you're going through these movements and as you're practicing them, I want you to practice them with more awareness as to what may be going on. And we will cover some of the ionics today, which is the words that go with things. Yes. But part of the reason for ionics is to maintain presence in more than one center as you're going through this, okay? But having the idea in mind that as you're doing physical movements, there's an external movement going on, but there's also an internal movement, and that involves many different centers, okay? So as I'm asking you to think about these movements, I would like you to really engage the thinking center and let it follow, okay? A lot of times in what are known as internal martial arts, like Tai Chi and Xingyi and Bagua and so on and so forth, they have the advice that as you're doing the movements that you watch your hands, especially in the beginning. And the reason why is because you power those, okay? So there's another thing to keep in mind when you're doing these movements, right? To actually watch what's going on as you do the movements. Yeah, because that the eye bow darts, which we haven't talked about yet, will help to charge that action in you. Okay, so now you've got something thinking going on. You have we haven't talked about the emotion of it, but we'll get to that as well. But you have a thinking aspect, you have a powering aspect, and so those are some things to keep in mind. All right, so now that you know that bit, right, you're charging the spine here by compressing the front. As you roll the shoulders up, what it does is it causes so you're releasing energy out into your aura here, okay? And then it furls. If you can see it electrically, what happens when someone does that movement is it furls its way to the back. And that's what this following the rolling of the shoulders does. It causes this kind of furling movement to go back. Now, then you end up in a position where the chest is out, right? Now the chest becomes expanded and the spine becomes compressed. What do you suppose happens then energetically?
Is it the heart and the lungs sort of getting a little bit of an expansion, because those are the organs when the ribs sort of expanding?
Yeah. Yeah, so by compressing the spine, what you're causing is the high end of that gold bar, okay, the high end of the spine or the main accumulator to begin to release force, okay, into it. And it's going to go back to where that vacuum is, but with addition, right? Because first you just kind of like stimulate it this way, and then it compresses and washes back into the front, yeah? Good. Now, what's the important bit about pointing the fingers at the toes? Who knows the story of the Persian immortals? Anyone? No? Oh, okay. So the Persian immortals, that's what they were called. There were 7 of them. They were known for being able to walk for hundreds and hundreds of miles without ever tiring, without ever wearing out. And the way that they did it, it's called the Walk of the Persian Immortals. You know how like most people, I'm going to look like the classic image of Bigfoot here, but you know how most people like swing their arms opposite their legs as they're walking? What the Persian Immortals would do is they would point and fire force at their feet and walk like this. Do you see? Okay, so as they would constantly point this force down into their feet, creating a circuit. And that would allow them to maintain this kind of internal state of regeneration as they were doing these 100-mile walks without, taking any kind of break, right? So that's another aspect of what we're doing in the bow position. And you can look it up. There's not a lot of references. I've tried to find references on Google and whatnot for the Persian immortals. You're just as likely to find like video game references or something as you are anything else. But regardless, yes. So
yeah, when you described what the action was, it was very much what the samurai could also walk in the same way with the same arm and same leg going forward. Yeah.
And in fact, if you think about like some of the positions that the samurai would take and all that, from a combat perspective, they're actually quite impractical in some respects, right? Having this very kind of high sort of thing going on, right, as you're going to execute. And you should look at those types of things from an electrical standpoint, because what this is doing, right, this sort of movement here is also another form of activating that gold rod, right? And what that causes is a state to be able to form around a person. In other words, it induces an atmosphere so that if someone were to enter into that atmosphere, right, that this samurai had generated or developed in their own space, in their aura, it's a very gold type of atmosphere. Now, you would think you would need silver for combat, but what happens in a gold atmosphere is things slow down. And so from a mental perspective, the samurai in this case is holding a silver mentality with a gold posture, you see. And so anything entering into that, he's going to be able to see it as though it's coming in slow motion and be able to react to it. Actually, a gold atmosphere will leave trails. You'll see this kind of right? If you've ever been in that kind of a trailing thing. So thanks for bringing that up. See, I'm just gonna bring things in. It wasn't intended to come into this, but I want to give as many frames of reference and context for these various things as we go through them. Okay, so any questions on the bow position? The sudden release. You wanted to chime in with that bit, didn't you, Mark?
No, I didn't. But go on. I'll let you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
sudden release then.
Yeah, it was to do with, as some of the things that you've already mentioned at the other stages of the bow position, that it's to do with releasing energy back in.
Yeah.
But what I can also see is in the sponge analogy, having charged it and released it, it means it's in a state that it can then receive charge again.
Right. Yeah, very good. Now, if you're very, very sensitive, you're going to feel something kind of interesting when you do that release, excuse me, from the bow position. And the best way to describe it is a reflection back up from the planet. Because as you go, through this motion and you hold and release, suddenly you're going to feel this bounce happen that happens not physically, but electrically from the ground back up into you. Okay. And this is why I said, make sure that when you're holding that tense position, that you're also grabbing the ground with your toes. And when you release, let it go. Let all of it go. Yeah. And you'll feel this kind of like, I'm trying to think of a physical analogy. There is one. Do you know a water siphon, how a water siphon works, right? It has a small stream that's pulling a bigger one along with it, right? So because water has this kind of cohesive aspect to it, doesn't it? And it will attract other water. And so as something is flowing through, it kind of creates this vacuum. But when the siphon is first starting, it flows down in and then it brings up more of it with it. Yes. And so that's kind of what's happening, but you're actually getting a deep blue planetary force in your aura. And again, if you watch this electrically, you'll see this kind of midnight blue begin to fill up from the lower aspects or the bottom of the aura. And we'll go into what that's useful for in time, but just kind of trying to give you more and more references, okay? And please be aware. So let's stand up if you're not already. And with these things in mind, let's go through the bow position, but let's do it at half speed, except for the very release at the end. And the things that I want you to pay attention to as you go through the bow position is that feeling of that compression, that energy releasing from the heart and solar plexus area, and it furling backwards and then compressing the spine, which then begins to release energy. And when you do that relaxation move, that sudden relaxation, see if you can sense that reflection of the planetary energy coming back up into you, okay? All right, so let's do it at half speed. Move forward. Feel that tension, good. Now up. That's the furl. Back. And hold, tighten everything. Now release. Did you feel that bounce? Let's try it again. Shake the hands for a second. They're already getting loaded, aren't they? Oh, right, good. Thank you, Mark, for doing that. Please, if you are wearing any jewelry, please remove it because it can change the nature of the energy. Okay, let's do it again. So forward, up, back, hold, release. There it is. Serena, I think I sensed it for sure happen in you. I could see that kind of I don't know how I'm connecting to it because I don't. Some people see electrically through the camera. I'm not sure if I buy that, to be honest. But I've never been able to. But yeah, I could see something in there as far as the way your body reacted to that. Okay. Now, I said we will talk about what are called ionics, and ionics are certain expressions that go with each of these movements, not every single one of them, but we're going to only cover the first few today. And so when you do the bow position, you can say this out loud or inside if you're in an environment where that wouldn't be appropriate, but say out loud, I now engage the discipline. So let's try this, okay? Bow position. I now engage the discipline. Good. Wonderful. Well, now we've done the bow 3 or 4 times. You're probably starting to feel that kind of loading, happening in there, but let's go ahead and pair now. Now, the negative hand, so that would be the left hand for gents, goes on top, and the positive hand on the bottom, and it's just reversed for ladies. So the right hand would be on top and the left hand would be on the bottom. You're going to start about 3 inches apart. I'm going to move in here where you can see. Okay, so, and it's got to be right at solar plexus level. Solar plexus is just where the sternum meets, just right there. Okay, good. So start at 3 inches apart and go to the elbows and then back to the fingertips. And the ionics that go with this is silver to silver, gold to gold, the pairing of the ways. Torsten, don't let your hand go up so far towards your shoulder. Try and keep it nice and flat. Yes?
Mhm.
Good. And Mark, I believe you're a little high, not quite at solar plexus level. There you are. Good. So again, the ionics that go with this are silver to silver, gold to gold, the pairing of the ways. And then as you wind, I let you go. Yeah. Flick it away. Did you guys bring plants this time? Got plants near you?
No.
All right, okay. We'll work into it a bit more then. I'm actually intentionally discharging because I don't want to stay loaded right now. But if you wish, keep your hands separated, okay? So what's happening here, right? We've talked about the silver and the gold aspects before. But what's actually happening when you're doing this pairing movement? Who wants to explain from what you understand? Sachin, what happens? I know you're fiddling with a plant.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the question. I was just getting the plan. What was the question?
Right. The question is what actually happens energetically when you're doing the pairing movement?
The separation of the gold and the silver energies is happening. We're basically cutting the force, sort of separating it to generate both the sort of the. Okay, that's the extent of my knowledge for now.
That's fine. Yeah, no, that's correct. So what we're dealing with here is in a normal condition, in a shorted out condition, or as it is generally, you're going to have a situation where your positive hand is only positive by 2/3. In other words, it's only silver by 2/3, 1/3 being gold. Okay, and the opposite is the case for the negative hand, being 2/3 gold and 1/3 silver. And so what this pairing movement does is it strips off and kind of by way of attraction or like, magnetizing something, it strips off that 1/3 nature and loads it into the forearm of the positive hand so that the end result is the positive hand becomes fully silver and the negative hand becomes fully gold. Now, why you might want to do this, we'll talk a little bit about healing at the moment, okay? Because if you're most of these movements you can use with someone else, right? If you have someone sitting there, you can do your pairing movement and then you can begin to move things around in their aura. You can, with the positive hand, will have a repulsive type of nature to it, whereas the negative hand will have a drawing kind of nature. So it will pull things off. And you'll get to the point, Sachin, you probably are already aware of this. In fact, everyone here is, because you have experience, but you feel these hot spots, don't you? Right? When you're working with someone, it's kind of like this staticky sort of thing. There's many ways to disperse that. What I like to do when I'm doing a healing type of work on someone is to start off with silver, because silver will have this nature of being able to kind of break it up. Right? It's like a bell in the unseen worlds, right? It kind of cleans it out and breaks it up. If I'm having trouble getting rid of that hot spot with silver or trying to move it out, then I'll use my own gold to pull it and to draw it. Okay. Now, please, when you're working with this type of thing, be very cognizant and careful with one another. The reason I say that, I'll give you another. I'm going to start having to call these the stupid Pierce moves when I was younger. like I said, I've been involved in this sort of energy type of work for about 40 years. And when I learned how to begin to move energy, not only in myself, but in other people, I had a friend, I think I was probably about 10 at the time or whatever, maybe 12, had a friend and I wanted to experiment with him. And so I started, taking energy from the base of his spine and moving it up towards his head. And he literally like kind of threw up a little bit, passed out, and then woke up later. So please, please be careful with one another. This is something that has quite a bit of an effect. It's one thing to just like, fire blue force at someone's kidneys and see if you can make them have to go pee. But it's another thing when you're actually dealing with silver and gold energies, and especially with something like the spine, which is a main accumulator. If you don't know what you're doing, you can cause harm to someone. A couple of other things to keep in mind when you are walking somewhere or standing next to your lady. Generally speaking, it's more beneficial for both of you if she is on your right side. And for ladies, you're gent on your left side. And the reason why is, there you go, is because you're creating a positive circuit that's charging something, right, between the two of you. If you switch sides, then you're drawing off of each other. Okay, so all these little tidbits here. Sachin, you have a question, it looks like.
Well, I have several questions. This last
in true Sachin form. Good.
Okay.
I like
Never mind. These are observations, so we can come.
No. That was not meant to be dismissive. I was encouraging your questioning, so please ask one.
Well, so I when I'm doing Reiki, for example, even now I'm feeling my ears start to get hot, and so I'm seeing hot as gold or healing, and somewhat little cold, goosebumps, as silver or cleansing. Is that the right way to think of it, or is the opposite?
Generally that is true. It's funny, right? Because the scary movies always get it absolutely backwards. If you're in the presence of something high and fine, the room itself will get cold, right? They always show like the temperature dropping when a ghost enters or whatever. It's nonsense. What happens when something of a low order, when you come into contact with something of a low order, it feels hot and prickly. Now, the kind of heat that you're describing, I believe, is what you would classify as a gold warmth, not heat.
Yeah.
Meaning that like it has this sort of like gentle summer day kind of feel to it, not a prickly. Yeah.
No, it's not prickly. So this is usually when I'm sitting and doing Reiki and I'm starting to kind of start to feel the energy come in.
Yeah.
And even with Kim, when we initially started being together, I was trying to see if I could get some Reiki to her. And she's completely, she's more aware now, but at that point she didn't know anything about Reiki.
Yeah.
And I could really like feel energy just flow, and I could feel her body getting hotter. She didn't feel it. She's like, I don't see this, but I could feel that the energy was going through. Yeah. And she's like, I don't feel any different, probably because of sensitivity. Like I was super sensitive. Even now I'm very sensitive just to kind of just doing this. So that was one question. Second question is to do with the circle that you mentioned. The circle, is it intentional?
The furling? Is that what you mean?
The male female sort of.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. So is that more apparent when you're actually doing it consciously? Because I didn't even know about it. So we were not, like, we go on walks every day, almost every day. So we are not consciously paying attention to who's on which side. We will now, I think, going forward. And so that's the side by side. And then when we are walking single file, I'm almost always going to say, you go in front, I'm in back. And I don't know if that's the right way to do it. We seem to be okay with that. And we're okay with me being in front and she being back when a single file. But is that the same kind of circle, front and back, or is it only side to side?
So what's going to happen if you're in front of her as you're walking is it's going to cool you, because the spine can run hot. and her being a lady is going to have this kind of naturally cooling activity on you anyway. Whereas if she is in front, you're going to have a warming, and I don't mean a heating, but I mean a warming aspect to her. I'm talking electrically, right? And so it's
exactly what you
kind
want.
of a very good service that you can do for one another. You see these very strange things in Egyptian art sometimes, right? Where you've got the pharaoh or some god figure sitting, kind of like knees on his lap and so on. And then you have, the lady with one hand at the base of the spine and another one on the forearm here. That's a healing, right? Egyptologists won't tell you this, but what's happening there is that she's she's drawing something off the spine in that case, right? And charging up the accumulator, which lives in the arm here.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, there's so much to this, right? But to your point, one aspect is that when you start to learn something, other parts of you are listening. Other parts of you are probably already aware of this information. Like, for instance, your instinct is probably quite aware that, of what these movements do. But you've never really told it that you're interested until you get it in the mentality, right? We've talked about this, and then it becomes a moving center thing and so on and so forth. It filters through us. So the idea that, initially you may not feel something is just because it hasn't worked its way into where all of these parts that are already aware of it are going, yeah, you're right. I do know that. Yeah. Like your instinct will shout out at you sometimes to go, yes, this is it. So yeah, it boggles the mind how little we are consciously aware of, like we go through our life and all around us, there's always stuff coming in, even on the physical levels, right? We've got all these kind of lights coming in and sounds around us and temperature changes and all these sorts of things. But we never notice it until we place our awareness there. Mm-hmm. You don't notice that you're standing on the ground until I bring your awareness to the fact of it and say, feel what the ground feels like underneath your feet. All of a sudden it begins to shout at you, right? You have this sensation of it, but it was there all along. We just didn't pay attention to it. So that's kind of an explanation of what you're talking about in that aspect, Sachin. Got it. Okay, good. Okay, winding. What does winding do as we finish the pairing movement? Silver to silver, gold to gold, the pairing of the ways. And I know, Mark, because you've got that book, you're going to come back.
Thank you for Serena to say it's her turn. I've said quite a bit already.
Is it drawing the static off?
It is, yes. But what is it about this movement here? Because why not just go here? Would this work? Would that work? Try it. Let's try it. Let's try it and see. Stand like I did, feet sort of wider than shoulder width. Okay. Do a quick pair about 3 times. Silver to silver, gold to gold, the pairing of the ways. Okay. Now bring your hands to solar plexus level. Push straight out. And separate. What does that do? What do you feel? I'll guarantee you it does something. Yes, Mark?
Yeah, I felt it on the inside of the forearms.
Yeah.
That it was being drawn off that way.
Yeah.
And
but
when you do the rolling, it's actually almost like a brush. Yeah. So it's gathering left, right, and then out.
Yeah, exactly. It's so this left, right thing that you're describing is chopping. Yep. It's chopping it. It's cutting it up so that it has a better chance. This will push electrics out of you if you do it enough times. Okay. This type of movement will definitely It will also increase this lance that comes out of the solar plexus. But what happens in this regard is that if you're not already clean when you're doing it, the static will load into your forearms, which is what you're describing. You begin to feel that in there because, again, these are accumulators. They're going to want to store whatever it comes into contact with. Okay, so yes, this does work, but it also has the aspect of probably loading it in, which fortunately we can clear up, right, with these movements, can't we? Yeah. Okay, good. All right, winding. And again, the ionics that goes with winding is I let you go. Okay, I let you go. Mark, I suspect that if you consult your Electrobix manual, that you will probably see that I have reversed the order of the words for the ionics for pairing. And that's intentional. It probably says in there, gold to gold, silver to silver, the pairing of the ways. And I say silver to silver, gold to gold. What does yours say?
Let's have a look. You know what?
Huh?
Do you remember right from the word go when you were talking about how the martial arts masters keep certain things back?
Yes.
They haven't got the ionics now.
Ah, interesting. Okay, well,
Interesting.
there you go.
Hang on, Serena's saying that it might be the next page. No, that's the drawing. Hang on. Yeah, it hasn't got the ionics on it. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's keep moving forward, but look for it. Yeah.
But that's interesting.
Yeah. So
Put it in there.
when it was originally put out, and this is an example of working something fresh because I don't, I'm not a parrot, right? I'll tell you what I know, and I'll tell you what I've come to and what I can actually do and what I've learned. But I will never be a parrot and say, unless I tell you so and so said this or I have heard it said, right? Then I'll repeat things, right? But by saying gold to gold, silver to silver, you're causing the wrong kind of reversal for what this work does, because this work in the initial aspects of it, silver is it goes out and gets something. Gold, right? If you want to talk about silver religions are all about recruiting, aren't they? They're all about going out there and doing it or seeking truth, right? They'll climb a mountain to go find the truth of something. A gold religion sits and waits until truth comes to you. Okay, and so by saying gold to gold, silver to silver, you've got the order all backwards in my estimation, because what we want to do is we want to go get it and then bring it in. So I think that silver should come first in this ionics. So feel free to practice it however you wish, but I find it more effective because of the link probably I'm creating in my own astral light about the ionics, that seems to be a bit more effective in that regard. Okay, so just something to consider, think about. Okay, standard fanning. We remember this one, right? So we've gone through all of our pairing and all that type of stuff, standard fanning. Now this is interesting. One thing I probably didn't point out or maybe not emphasize well enough is that when you come back to this position, you're firing it back into your feet. So this is that Persian Immortals aspect, but coming back and making a connection and then fanning it off to the side. Now, if you want to use this in healing, like I said before, I think I demonstrated this, but you can cool down someone else's atmosphere by doing it towards them this way. Yeah. But when you're trying to cool down your own atmosphere, you're going this way, like a bird. Now, why is that? Why do you suppose that is? Why is it different this way when you're healing someone else? Why not just stand next to them and do this?
I think doing it with both hands also is a little bit of a circular pattern. If we do it this way, then it's only half, because you're only doing it on one half, plus there's no circular pattern there.
Could you, for example, see again, my goal with this is I don't want you to walk away saying, well, Pierce said this, right? I want to give you all the tools that you need to be able to work it for yourself so that it becomes your own. But could you, for example, if you're doing a healing with someone, could you do it this way? And then as you get to the other side, right? Could you do it that way? Of course, I'd be bonking them in the head, but you understand, right? I don't have a big enough circle here. Would that work?
That's going to create more of a sort of a spiral that goes up and kind of sucks out the whatever you're trying to suck out from there or out. So yeah, that would work really well. I don't know if
you're right.
You'd probably have to do it for longer. I would think just once or twice might not be enough. You'd have to do maybe 10 times, maybe something like that. Plus, you'd also want to charge it up. Like maybe you want to do it in front of them a little bit, so you're charged up, and then you walk around them. So and then you keep charging.
Did you notice? I don't know if you can see my feet, but did you notice what I did? So I'm doing this motion, right, as I'm walking around them. But when I got to this side here, I went backwards like that. Why would I do that? Because what I did there, that would work to cool them down, just like this.
When you do it the other way around, you're also sort of, what's the right words here? You're also keeping some back or sort of building the foundation inside them to hold whatever they're like. You're pulling stuff off, but also sort of holding stuff that you want to hold in them. So you're also reinforcing sort of the good things. Again, I don't know, there's a way to say good things and bad things. Pulling the silver out is what you're doing, but you're also helping to support the gold and keep it down a little bit, not have it pulled out.
Well, what did we say about this, right? This is a venal type of movement, but done in an arterial way. Remember? Do you remember that from last time when I talked about this cooling aspect? Up and down is a very arterial type of thing, isn't it? Right? It's that driving force. Whereas the waving of this type of pattern is a very venal thing. Another way you could do it would be this, wouldn't it? Right? That would cool things off. I'm just giving you things to work on and think about, but there's more than one way to achieve what we're trying to do with this. And sometimes one way is more useful than another. Okay, but again, back to our own auras for a moment. So we're here, we do really you're returning to a bow position, but just without the tension each time. And that's to cause that circuit to connect and then disconnect. Connect and disconnect. So there's an aspect that you're doing in that type of fanning. Okay, people have a difficult time with yes, Sachin?
A couple questions, Pierce. One is, do you have recommendations on the way? Is it splayed fingers or is it cupped hand? And I'm thinking cupped hand or just.
It is cupped like this. Okay. Splayed fingers you would want to use if you found a clump of static and you want to, again, break it up like a winding movement. This clawing kind of movement can be very beneficial for grabbing things, right, and breaking them up.
Okay. Second question, I did Electrobix every day for this whole week. I think maybe I missed one day. And I'm always feeling far more charged now when we're practicing together, like significantly more.
Yes.
And I was like, when I was doing it during the workday, I was kind of rushed because I only had an hour and I had to finish my stretching and my Electrobix and my pranayam. So maybe you recommend like just not doing it when you're rushed, or do you recommend just do it anyway, even if you're not able to do the full like you don't have enough time to commit to it? So maybe only do 1 rep instead of 5 reps, or maybe not do it at all.
So here's the thing. Right now, what you are doing is you're getting it into the white and red and blue aspects of yourself. Do you understand what I mean by that? Like you're learning about it mentally, right? Just the actual technology of it. Your body is developing a muscle memory for it, how to do these various movements. The instinct is learning how to take those, not learning actually, it is taking those energies and putting it where it needs to for you at this point in time. Okay, so that's the red, white, and blue. When it becomes a yellow and green, in other words, you have a connection to it, an emotional connection to it, or if you get to a place where you have a certain mastery with it, like I do, right? Where I can now take other movements and design Electrobix because it's not invention, right? You're actually pulling things together and saying, yes, this fits with this. But anyway, my point with this section is that you can use it like a medicine. So if you have a particular need, then you can just do that segment that you need. That's from today, by the way. You can do that segment that you need to cause certain results in yourself without having to go through it in a systematic, do this first, do this second, do this third. Now, the one caveat to that is that I would say always do the bow position and always pair before doing anything else. The rest, up to you. Okay.
Okay. So I think I'm hearing it as, Sachin, even if you have 10 minutes, just do the bow and the pair, and maybe do the fanning, because the fanning is also very charging.
Let your instinct tell you, and you're right, the fanning can be very charging, but let your instinct tell you which ones to do. Okay. But always do the bow position and pairing, because what that does is it makes the rest possible. Okay. Those are like, you got to start the engine before you drive. Yeah. Where you drive is, completely up to you, but you have to start the engine first.
Got it. Yeah, I think if I was equating to my breathing practice, it's you have to do a few deep breaths and kind of calm your mind and get into the stance, get into the pose before you start doing anything more at once. So sometimes all you have time for is get in the pose and stay there for like a minute, and that's it. That's all you have time for. So okay, got it.
Yeah. All right, great. Okay. Many people have a difficult time with the second part of the arm wing bow dart refresher. When I'm going to stand at kind of an angle here, and hopefully my camera doesn't misinterpret this, but when you come to here and you come down to the wrist, it's this motion here. So I want to elaborate on that a little bit more. All right. So what happens in this is that your hand will bend upward towards you, so palm towards you, and then you will rotate it. If it's the left hand, you'll rotate it clockwise all the way down and around. In other words, towards the center of your body for as high as you can, and then end up in this position. If it's the other hand, same thing applies, but it's going to be counterclockwise. So every time it's going to be going inward towards your body. I'm going to do them both simultaneously so that you see. Okay, so they both come in this way. They go towards the center of your body. And then that, yeah? Okay. Does that make sense? Does that clear it up? Because I think a lot of people struggle with it, is like, you get to this point here and you're like, how do I get there? Yeah. What's the right way around?
So I think here's the key thing that I heard from it is always be turning inwards. That's
inwards. That's right.
Because that's where, for both hands. So when you do, automatically it becomes counterclockwise and clockwise because it's inwards.
Yes. Now I'm going to challenge you all with another motion and want to see if you can detect for yourselves what this does. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my hand here. I'm going to bring it in, around, up, and over. Imagine that there is a teacup on your palm, okay? And you don't want to spill it, but you want to bring it here, around, up, and over. What does that motion do? And you can do them both, right? You can, that is the more advanced version of that. What does that do? Based on what you now know regarding tension and spirals and movement from low to high and high to low and all of this. Is this approach good? Do you enjoy this approach to it? Okay.
It's good. Yeah.
Right. I could just bark out orders like it's a military camp, right? Now do this.
I felt it charge very quickly. How it's charging, I don't know. But one of the things that I probably best to put in now, ever since I was a kid, and when I was learning karate, my moving center gets confused with complex Putin, so it takes much longer.
Yeah.
To actually, you know, even with that flipping of the wrists, it gets confused. I don't know if it's this that gets in the way or whatever, but
Yeah. Do you want to know how to fix that?
yeah, please.
I'll tell you how to fix that. It's actually quite
Yeah.
easy, and you'll take this with you for the rest of your life. Do math problems in your head while you're doing it. Take something like try to count by 7 or 14, 28. Make it challenging. Do you understand?
Right.
While you're doing this, and what that will force, because what you're describing is the moving center is not taking it from you. It's listening to your mind and trying to obey what your brain is telling it to do, as opposed to it doing what it can do best, right? It's like, it shouldn't be this way, but it's listening to it as though it's the instructor and it's trying to follow those directions. If you give your brain something to do, then your moving center has no choice but to just take it. It has to at that point, okay?
Yeah, great.
And let me emphasize something here too. The point of this is not to become good at math, because the brain is going to go, brains are very egotistical things sometimes. I can do that, right? And especially like, if you get used to counting by 14s and you can just up, all the way up to 144,000 or whatever, what's going to happen? That would be 12s, wouldn't it? Anyway, what's going to happen is that your moving center will start doing that instead, you see, and your brain, it's almost a reversal that goes on at that point, because then your brain goes, well, I'm really good at that, aren't I? And it's not, right? So keep it challenging, okay? Make it, 14.7 or something that keeps your brain humble and trying, so that your moving center actually has a fighting chance to take it and do it. Okay. All right. There's a bit of advice for that. Okay. And now wing edge bow dart refresher. Again, I talked about, we have angel wings a lot of times, not always. Sometimes they're folded in, aren't they? But we have what would look like angelic wings coming out from our spine. And it's really just a function of force flowing out. And literally what they do, like the edges or the feather aspects of it, what they do is they draw force from the spine and touch it to the outside of the aura. That's what your wings do from just a functional standpoint. They're the circuit that charges the nerve level of the aura. Okay. But when we do this, right, the wing edge one, what we're doing is we're taking all of the clutter that ends up on this edge of the wings, and dispelling it, getting it outside of the aura in there. All right. And using the backs of the hands as a kind of like a reverse pairing. When you go up the spine this way, you're going back, hand back to back. And what that's doing is it's charging and brushing and cleaning the spine, cleaning any excess energy off of there that's kind of just stuck. Yes? Okay. Any questions on the first 6? We didn't talk about butterfly meditation just yet, but we will. The first 6, bow position, the pairing of the ways, winding, standard fanning, arm wing bow dart refresher, and wing edge bow dart refresher. Any questions on those before we move on?
There's no questions. I just want to parking lot the conversation about breathing. Just keep coming back to that. We don't have to go to that. If you have time towards that, we'll go to it.
You want to know about breathing?
No, I just want to talk a little bit about it. We can do it later at the end. I think last time you said just keep doing your normal flow. So that's kind of what I'm going with. That's fine.
Please don't change your breathing at this stage. There is advanced levels of it where you do certain things with breathing, but frankly, you have to be supervised while you do it. Like I would have to be in the room with you, or we'd have to be somewhere together in a park or whatever to make sure, because I need to be able to see what's happening to you in your aura as you're breathing. Very, very delicate thing. For now, Your instinct knows exactly what to do. As long as it has not been superimposed by breathing practices that you've put there. Do you understand?
Yeah, I think that's exactly my point. Let's not digress. Let's
Tough.
go with
Yeah.
your.
Okay. All right. Just keep aware of it. Okay. So the butterfly meditation. Now this brings up something, a technology that I want to discuss, and it has to do with tension. It has to do with holding tension. The butterfly meditation starts off right here after your bow position. You come into this right over left, and you press your thumbs together very, very strongly. Okay, and you slowly bring it in. Now, what this is doing is it's compressing everything that was out there, in other words, outside in this area of your aura, and bringing it into you. And the ionics that goes with this is with my wings, I cover me. Okay, so with my wings, I cover me. But let's talk about tension for a minute. I'm going to give you an exercise that you probably should not do before you go to bed because you won't sleep. Do it in the morning if you wish, but you can do it in a standing position. It's probably easier in the beginning to do it laying down, but take a muscle that's connected to a long bone, for instance, your leg, okay, your top of your leg here. And as you're laying there, ever so slowly, begin to tense it. I'm talking over like a 5-minute period. Tense it slowly, and try to train it not to be jerky, because what most people will experience in the beginning when they're concentrating on these muscles like that is that it will, sorry, my camera's trying to do something. You'll feel it going in starts where you'll have this like chit, 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 you know, and it's jumpy. This exercise, by the way, don't take it up to 100%. At first, just take it up to about 75% of the tension. And then over the next 5 minutes, slowly relax it again until it's completely relaxed. Okay, now, that is a form of pumping. And what it does is, how do I describe this? It's almost like a trick of the accumulators, because the accumulators think they're spending energy, but the energy is actually being contained in the muscle. And then as you relax, it releases it back in. Now, what happens when an accumulator thinks it's losing energy, right? We talked about these kind of bars before where, you know, you're running or doing whatever, and one accumulator becomes almost exhausted and then it switches over to another. This trick, empties temporarily an accumulator, like in your leg, or you can do it in your arms or whatever the case is, to the point where it begins to pull energy in, okay? And usually does it from the spine. But then what happens is when you are relaxing that muscle after it's tense, you begin to relax it again, the energy that you took out of it goes back into the accumulator again. So you're like doubling the amount of energy available to you in your main accumulators. Is this exercise make sense? Yeah. It's a lot easier said than done, I'll tell you that. Any questions?
Pierce, I can see why you're saying it won't get you to sleep, because this is like drinking a Coke at 10 p.m. It's just like a lot of energy just came in. If it was done for one group, then yeah, maybe it'll dissipate in an hour or so. But if you did it for your whole body, like you're staying awake for like 5 hours.
You are, yeah, absolutely, yes. So anyway, I hate to use the word trick, because it's not like we're trying to, do something that we shouldn't be doing to our bodies. We actually should have access to that energy anytime we want it anyway. It's just that we're never shown or taught or
I think
to do it.
Pierce, the way I would describe this is, we're not really tricking, we're priming the body for some intense activity. This would be fantastic to do, before a tennis game or before an examination. You have to write a paper for 2 hours. You do that right before it and you just become hyper. So you're just kind of charging the body up. Yeah. I mean, it's not a trick really.
It is.
Well, you're not doing anything illegal.
I use tricks in the sense of, whatever works. If it works, then it's a good trick, isn't it? But let me re-emphasize something. Now, why am I doing this, by the way? Why am I doing this? Come on.
Pointing to the thinking center, pointing to directing.
Look here. This is here, and this is going to the nose.
Yeah, so you're pointing the right hand, which is your silver hand, to your thinking center, to your nose, and you're also supporting it with your left hand. So you're like, I see what you're doing.
You're so close. You're so close. It's actually the emotional center. The emotional center. And the reason why I'm doing this right now is because I'm about to drive a point home that you cannot forget. And the reason why this works is because if you're sensitive at all, you're going to feel this emotional charge, this emotional content that comes with it. You understand? If you want someone to listen to you, rub your nose with your silver hand a few times, and what begins to come out of your eyes is very, very powerful indeed. Okay. Now, that was a sidetracked. This is what I want you to listen to with respect to these tension types of tricks that especially the one that I just gave you. If you're doing it, never go to 100%. You can go to 99% once you become skillful with it, but don't ever go to 100%, because then what happens is that energy is released, and you really do have to recharge an accumulator instead of doubling it up. Does that make sense? Is that clear? Yeah. So butterfly meditation. With my wings, I cover me. Start off in a relaxed position, and slowly, as you bring this into your chest, and I do mean ever so slowly, I'm going to speed it up, obviously, but you can take a few minutes to do this. Slowly increase that tension as you get in, and it has the same effect as that charging of the accumulators trick. Yeah, has the exact same effect, and you'll get 10 times more out of the butterfly meditation by doing that. And again, only take it up to 75% in the beginning. Once you become more skillful with it, you can take it up higher, but never hit 100%. Okay. Any questions there? Good.
Not a question, but can I make a suggestion?
Yes, would you step in closer to the camera though, because I can't hear you or see you.
Is that better? Right. Yeah. Not a question, but a suggestion. Instead of us using the word trick, use technique or method.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What does it mean there? Because here in America, trick can have two contexts. Trick can be something deceptive, or it can be something like skillfully done, right? Like a magic trick. Yeah. Well, magic trick is also both. Anyway. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
I think in America, trick sounds like something a hustler would do, whereas a technique sounds, or a method sounds like what a wise man or a professional would do. So that actually sort of taints
saying,
a bit.
Be more professional.
Yeah.
You got it. Yeah. You got it. No, no problem.
This feels like, this is a guy with tricks, not to be trusted, because he's going to trick you.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. So that's what I wouldn't do.
Fair enough. That works. Okay, good.
Okay, great.
We're kind of at the hour here, so I'm going to give it the time that it needs, but I will go through these rather at a quicker pace than I did with the first 6. Okay, so the next one, and they're quite easy actually. The next one is called the Higher Emotion Bow Dart Refresher. The emotional outlets, as you probably have figured out, is the throat and the nose. When you're crying, you're like choking up here, right? You get this tightness in your throat, your nose starts to run, all this sort of thing. These are ports where the emotion can express itself and hold a charge. Okay, and so what this does, I'm going to turn slightly sideways. You take your positive hand, so gents, your right hand, ladies, your left hand, and you're going to place it over your nose, but not touching, just kind of, can you guys see me? I can't. Okay, yeah. Here, and you're going to take this and pull away and just flick it to the plant or flick it to the sides or whatever. And again, you come back into this position, draw away. and do it 3 times. If you're ever feeling kind of choked up or overly emotional or whatever the case is, this is a very powerful exercise that you can do to kind of calm that back down again. I'll give you, you need to know this when you're doing healing though, because if you're working on somebody, you don't want to put your left hand towards their throat because it's gold, it's going to have this possibility of shutting it down or slowing down the activity of it too much. And so, you know, you're doing a healing on someone, you're going to take your right hand and you're just going to brush by their throat this way. I'm sorry, you're going to take your positive hand, okay? And you're going to brush. You can do it with your left hand at the nose or your negative hand at the nose of the person. So just flip it around if you're doing a healing on someone, okay? Take the positive hand and just kind of scoop away from the throat, and then the negative hand and pull off of the nose. That'll be much more effective and much safer for them. Any questions? The higher emotion, bow dart refresher. Fairly straightforward. Not like serving teacups, right? Okay. The next one is called the ear bow dart refresher. And so the higher emotion has to do with the higher end of the bar with respects to emotion, not the higher emotional center, which you've heard of before. Okay, that's something different. The ear bow dart refresher, you're going to start with your hands palm up, straight out to your sides. You're going to bend at the elbows at a 90-degree angle, and then drop straight back this way. See how my hands are kind of curved back this way? Okay, and you're going to make cups or claws around your ears and turn 3 times and then flick away. Return to this position. Yeah, there you go. Good. Palms up, bend at the elbows, drop in. 1, 2, 3, just like that, very quick, and pull it away. If you're sensitive, a lot of people can hear electrically. Put your hands in that position by your ears, and I will shut up for a minute. You may hear a vibration or even a ringing. Yeah, most people do. It's that's known as hearing electrically. You can, just like you can see electrically, you can also hear electrically.
Pierce, I think this is going to fix my tinnitus.
Yes, actually, it can. It really can. And the ionics that goes with this is calciana. Calciana. Say that once. Calciana.
Calciana.
Yes, calciana. Anyone know why? Anyone have the reference of calciana?
There's a crystal somewhere in the ear, which is to do, I think, with calc, whatever the word in English is. And I think it does a certain kind of cleaning with that crystal.
It does. That vibration and that ringing that you're hearing is the stimulation of those crystal structures inside in the ears that you're kind of drawing that energy off of. Calciana is, it's not a word as much as it is a tuning fork to something in the astral light that has to do with the mentality and being able to clear that out. Okay, so what you're doing when you're doing this is not only clearing the ears, but you're also kind of brightening and shining up the mentality. You'll find if you practice this several times, more of a vibrance, more of a mental alertness and quickness that can come with this. So good, yeah, you're right. Okay, so we've got higher emotion, yes. We've got the ears, okay. And the next one is the ankle bow dart refresher. And this will test your balance a little bit, but you're going to bring your leg up so that it's at a 90-degree angle, in other words, parallel with the floor, okay? And you're going to bend down and right around your ankles, where the ankle bones are, almost looks like you're doing crane technique, you know, from, what was it, Karate Kid? Yeah, so you're just gonna grab the energy coming out of the ankles and flick it the sides. Okay. If do right, no can defense. I think that's what Miyagi said, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Right? Crane technique, Miyagi? Yeah, exactly. So do that for both sides, right? So left side, right side. I think it's said to do the left first. I haven't noticed that there's any difference whatsoever though. So I'll leave that to your own experimentation to find that out for yourself. Yeah, but this one, right? And it's very good at helping you with balance. Yeah. Later on, we'll start doing all kinds of things with balance to help improve that. But for now, draw it off and flick it. Okay. And that's the ankle. And again, these bow darts, these are like little ports where energy kind of darts out of the body at either vertical or horizontal angles. Yes. Questions on that one?
No, that's straightforward.
Okay. Next one is beard and bobble. And what this means is that you've got a bow dart coming out of your chin this way that electrically looks like a beard. And you have one coming out of your head this way that looks like a dunce cap, if you know what a dunce cap is, right? A pointy, just like that. And this is called the beard electrically, and this is the bobble. And you see this in some art, but you're going to take your negative hand to your chin area, positive hand to the head, and draw up and away and flick. Do it again. Bring it in. Do this 3 times. Beard and bobble. And flick. One more. And this is where you're going to have these kind of cup-like structures with your hands. Yes. Drawing like that as high as you can go, and then flick. This one is wonderful. If someone you know has a headache and they're open to being healed from it, again, you can do this to them, right? Of just drawing this away, and it will really kind of clear things up from a mentality standpoint. Another thing you can do is use your fingers in this kind of position and brush, almost like you're combing these what are called mental hairs, and pull it straight up and away. Yeah, that's really, really nice too, to do to someone, to help someone, I should say. Do to someone sounds so like, I'm going to do this to you. That's not right. It's not the right words that go with healing, is it? Okay. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for today. Great. Well, hey, thank you, everyone. And for many of you, hopefully I'll see you here in a few hours, and we'll work into whatever mess we get into, okay?
Yeah, again.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye for now. Thank you.